This is Atlas's 33rd session, 6th in the round pen, and I'm just going to work on doing a lot of desensitizing today. That's what the most of the stuff I wanted to get done today was. So I'm just working on rubbing on his face, working my way down his leg, and then a little bit slightly further down his belly, and kind of just getting him used to my touch further down toward his hips and his back legs. And I'm just going to work my way down there really slowly, so that's about as far as he's gotten, but that's the first thing I'm going to do. Then we're going to work on a little bit of draw, which he's gotten much better at. He readily goes forward and he follows me closer, and he's not as weary of the whips. So all those things are really looking pretty good. He's still a little bit worried. I'd like him to be more relaxed with them, but he is making progress. So we'll take him we can get at this point. So he's been afraid of this area of the round pen underneath the tree in the shade, and he decides like, oh, it's scary, so I'm gonna leave. He comes right back, which is great. I'm thinking maybe it's the shade, like the change in colors he finds scary. I'm not really sure, but I just wanted him to kind of come over there and, do some work over there and kind of get him over his fear. So I'm trying to send him over between me and the fence here, and he's like, nope. He's frozen right here. So he's just kind of blocking me out, not wanting to listen, not wanting to go forward, just kind of pretending this isn't happening. So this is more of a freeze response than I'm not listening to your response. So he's worried about it. He doesn't want to go forward. And then he kind of works himself out of it. He goes ahead and goes forward. See, he's going to shake his head. He wants to rub his face on his leg and lick his lips because now he's coming back down from being worried. It's a good demonstration of that. So I'm asking him to go the other way. See, he's a little nervous of the whip still when I sent him through. I'm just kind of working on sending him between me and the fence, which he does quite well. Like, he comes and faces me and yields his hindquarters pretty well. I'd like him, again, to not be as worried of the whips, but he's listening, so we'll take it. Try and add in some desensitizing so he's a little worried about it, and then I can rub him with it, and he's okay, so that's good. Because I want to do both things with the whips. I want to move him with them, but also touch him with them, and they're not scary. He's not afraid. He's not trying to run away. So he walks through more calmly that time. So I think he's kind of getting the idea here. He's not super worried about it. I'm just going to let him go around in a circle. And he has a nice bend. He's bending his neck toward me. I'm going to draw him toward me and then see if he'll kind of move off here to my left. And I'm just raising that long whip up and trying to just push his shoulder over to my left. So I'll do a bit more desensitizing too. He just needs a ton of desensitizing. Atlas thinks everything is scary, so he needs to be exposed to a lot of things and shown that they're all good things. Nothing's terrifying. Like, he's going to live. It's going to be okay. And the whips have been one of the hardest things for him to really get over. So I was desensitizing him to that there. I kind of moved the lash around next to him, and he was okay with that. And then it got on his foot, and he got worried about that and was like not so sure. So my whip came out of the handle, so I have to put the handle back on. But he handled the dragging of the whips on the ground, or the lashes on the ground next to him, pretty good. But he did not like it on his feet. So we kind of get him back and focused again. So he wants to kind of run off and get worried. So I'm just going to say, no, let's just come back and then go back and do a bit of desensitizing. So he's still worried here. So when he stopped there, he stopped with his body leaned away from me. He's still thinking about leaving. So all of that is he's not completely comfortable. And see, he's still worried. The lash was on his legs, and he was just like, nope, I can't do that. That's scary. So I'm just going to break it down for him here and just start out wide and just move the lash next to him without touching him first. So he's just kind of fearful of that movement right now because he thinks it's going to grab his legs. So we're just going to break it down a bit and just have it move back and forth and not touch him at first. And then once he's okay with this, we'll add in the lash touching him on the legs. So he's still wanting to walk around and get away from it. He's not completely okay with it. And when they stand there, they're not completely okay with it either, but he really wants to go into flight and just walk away or trot away to somewhere he thinks is safer. So I just kind of want to follow him with that. And then I got him to stop, and then I'm just going to keep moving that lash until he relaxes, and then I'll stop. So I had to block him there and then go ahead and start again. If I could go back and do something a little bit different, I would definitely have him target the whip more. And then every time I moved the lash, I would click and feed him. And I would start out really far away from him, as far as you could with your arm, and then work my way in more. And then I'd do that on both sides. And then I would go to having the lash touch his legs. Every time it touched his legs, I would click and reward him. And then I would build up duration of it on his legs. So, which I do in a different video later on, but the lash will go around his legs. I'll count to 1, click him, feed, and then you'll continue. You'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, however long you want. Usually after about 10 to 15, they'll stand there and they're pretty good with it. There he looked pretty relaxed. He had his head down. He's just lowering his neck a bit, but he's still paying attention. He's got that ear flicks back every time the lash moves, so he's not shutting down. He's not completely just pretending it's not there. He's still licking and chewing and moving, but he's really got a lot more comfortable with the lash. So that's why I like breaking the things down for him. I didn't chase him around and try and shove it on his legs. I just was like, okay, you're not super confident with this, so we're gonna break it down, just get the movement figured out, work my way up, and then go back to having the lash touch him on the legs. So again, for this few video series where he's really working a lot in the round pen, I didn't use any positive reinforcement. I definitely think that would have helped him, so I would add that in the future. But if you also don't want to use it, this is what I would do, or similarly to what I would do, because I'm just trying to experiment, see what works, what doesn't work, and then since I've already done these videos, I can kind of tell you what did and didn't work for Atlas. So I think that's pretty cool. Working again on some more driving. So I want to switch between him being driven with the whips and moving away from them, and then the whips touching him, and it's not the end of the world. So he's better. He moved his head away. He was like, I'm not so sure I want you to touch me with that. So ideally, so then he flinched, like he's still really worried, and he's got his shoulders leaned away. Ideally, I see that movement and stop, pause, wait, then reapproach when that movement isn't there. But since I went through that, see now he's leaving. He was telling me in the beginning, at the beginning of the clip, when it fast forwards, he moves his head away. He's like, I'm not okay. Then he flinches his belly. He's like, definitely not okay. And then he moves his feet. So he's showing me the whole time, like, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, before he leaves. So they can be really subtle things, but he's telling you that. And from this angle, you can tell he's leaning off to the left there. He's like, he's just kind of standing there and taking it. He's not okay with it. He's just kind of dealing with it until I'm done. And you can see how much desensitizing I do, just the negative reinforcement, touch him with the whips over just these sessions in the round pen, and how little that really helped him. It really didn't help him very much at all. He's decent with them. I can touch them with him, but as soon as I ask him to do any movement, he just kind of falls apart, and he really has a hard time moving away from the whips and then going back and desensitizing to them after they've moved him, and making sure that they're okay. So I definitely know I would have added in positive reinforcement there, and I think that would really help him differentiate what I'm asking, and there would be a lot less fear in there. So I'm working on a little bit of the desensitizing on his pole. He's still pretty worried about that. But we just did a little bit. I don't want to push him and make him run off again. So we're just going to work a bit of leading. And he's leading up a lot better. He's following better. He's closer. He's walking faster. So I think he really understands what I'm asking for with the leading. He's also a lot better with the whips. He's still a little bit worried of them dragging, but not nearly as bad. So he's doing pretty good with that. I'm pretty happy with how his leading skills have gone. Here he wanted to kind of go to the gate and get in front of me, because he was just wanting to go to a place where he feels safe. You can see when he would trot away a lot, he'd go right to the gate. So we were walking past there. He's like, I'd like to go to the gate. And then I was just like, that's okay. And I moved him, and then we went off again. It wasn't a big deal. I'm not going to punish him or do anything. I'm just going to maneuver him back and then continue on with what we were doing. He gets a little stuck here. I just ask him, and he goes on forward really nicely. So he's not getting real stuck, and then he's not just jumping forward either. So I like all those things. So I cut that out. I went to go get my rope, and I'm going to work on desensitizing him to the rope. So he doesn't love the rope, as you can see. He's looking, but he's leaving. He's definitely worried. Again, if I could start him over from this, I would have just had him touch the rope and fed him and continue to do that, like have him target the rope until he was cool with just the rope in my hand, like folded up. And then I would move it once, click, and then feed him, and then I would repeat that on each side. So since I didn't do that, we can see how to do it with a negative reinforcement. So all I'm doing is moving the rope and then continue to move it until he stops, and then I'll stop him back up. So there he was, like, somewhat interested. I should have stopped and let him look at it a bit more and, like, given him a release when he was standing still and looking, and then he just got too worried and trotted off there, wanted to go to the gate again. Then he stopped over quarter away from the gate, and then he got worried again and then left. So he does like to stop on this end of the round pen for whatever reason. But I should have definitely given him a bit more time to have a release. So I should have stopped moving the rope and just let him sit for a minute. So I'm not sure why I didn't. But so I'm giving him a little break there, but I should just let him sit for like a good minute or two and just let him think about it. So every time he faces it and relaxes, it goes away. So he is much better here. He's just standing there and facing it, but he definitely is still tense. He's still ready to run away at any point. So he's watching it very intently. His head kind of is moving with the rope, and his neck still upright. Like, he's kind of got a leg cocked, but that doesn't always mean, like, I'm relaxed. That could also mean I'm going to kick you or I'm going to run away from here. So I know a lot of trainers use it as, like, always a sign of relaxation, but it is not. So there he moved, and then he only took a few steps and stopped, so I stopped. That's pretty good. Again, I should have given him a bit longer break, but he is working with me, so that's good. So again, you can see he's definitely more relaxed. He's still, like, swishing his tail and looking around. He's not shutting down. And he's lowered his neck some, but he's, like, still watching the rope with his ears, so you can see how it throws it, and then that left ear flicks toward it every time. So he's definitely watching it, and he's turning his head to the right, so he's thinking, maybe I want to go that way. He also has a bug on his side, so that's probably not helping, but it's important to notice those things. So he's thinking, like, oh, I'd like to go to my right. He obviously, like, the gate is over there, so that's going to help draw him too, and he decides not to, which is good. But again, so, like, here I started to do it on the other side. He looked there, he leaned, and then he left. So he did it a lot faster sequence, but he did the same thing. So even if the horse doesn't leave, it is important to kind of notice those things, and then you can kind of somewhat predict what they're going to do. So he decided to leave, so I'm not going to chase him. I'm just going to move the rope just as I did before, same rhythm, same speed walking, nothing crazy. As soon as he stops, I'm going to stop and just let him hang out for a second. Again, I should have let him hang out for a bit longer. He comes up on his own, so I'm going to pause again. So that was really, really good. So he's getting the idea of it for sure. Of course, I'd like him more relaxed than he is now and given him a bit longer breaks, but he is staying pretty connected and relatively calm. I definitely think once he got his head up and his body tense, like, he's already over threshold, so that's way before he leaves. But again, this is like a learning experience, so at least we know that now. But he's licking his lips here and kind of getting at the flies and relaxing a bit. And you can tell he doesn't do that as much when he's more worried. So he'll, like, kind of stamp the flies less, and he won't turn his head to go get them as much either, because he is more preoccupied with watching me and the rope, and because he thinks that's a threat, so he's not going to do those behaviors as much. And you can see in this little clip now that he's doing that a lot more. So if you rewind a little bit to when I first bring out the rope, he's not doing those things, because he's more preoccupied with the dangerous rope. So that's something else that's kind of interesting. I just wanted to introduce the rope, so we'll just move on to the flag. And again, I want to just introduce the flag, nothing crazy. I do it in little baby steps, so I'm just going to bring it in and then just walk away with it. So I know that a lot of horses can be terrified of the flag. He doesn't seem to be like that, but I definitely didn't want him trying to bite at it, kick at it, stomp at it. I don't want any of those reactions, so I'm just going to bring it in and then just have it go away from him. So then we can work with his curiosity. He's like, oh, what's that? It's just going away from me. versus it's coming at him, it's trying to touch him, it's kind of forcing him, trying to touch him when he doesn't want it on there. So I'm just going to walk away from him, and then I'm trying to get him to come forward and follow it, and there he figures it out. So he's curious. So curiosity is going to be the opposite of fear, but they can change really quickly between the two. So like he has his head down, he's looking and following the flag there, but he could immediately like jump away and be terrified. So I wanted him to kind of investigate on his own because I didn't know what he was going to do. So I just popped it on the ground and let him come up to it on his own. And he wasn't super worried. So the first flag that I introduce is like, this is a bandana on a stick. So it's cloth. It doesn't move nearly as much as a plastic bag. It doesn't have any of the sound, but it gives them a little bit of the movement and just prepares them for the plastic bag. So I like to do this first, and then I'll move on to the plastic bag once they're comfortable with this all over their body. So I'm just drawing him toward it, and then I'll release once he takes a step forward or like some interest in looking at the flag. So right now I don't think he quite understands what I want, because usually I'm just drawing him toward me, but now I'm drawing him toward an object, which is fine. But I just wanted him to kind of explore the flag on his own before I added me being close to him and then it moving a lot, because I just didn't know what his reaction was going to be. So he doesn't seem horribly worried about it, so I'm going to have him just see if he'll look at it. And I definitely want to hold it out to the side. So here he looked at it, then he was like, oh no, that's too scary. So I'm just going to kind of keep it in the same distance that it was, and then he stopped and looked at it, I'll take it away. So I'm keeping it the same distance that it was. He looked at it, I'll take it away. So I am bringing it toward him, but I'm not bringing it closer to his body than it was when I originally held up the stick. So I'd like him to touch it and take it away. So there he does. At first, I just want him to look at it and then, get a bit closer and a bit closer until he touches it. But he handles that pretty well. I think part of the reason is because of how I approached him with it. Like at first, it was just going away, and then it doesn't immediately come at him like the ropes or the whips do. I think that really shaped how he responded to it. So I think that's pretty interesting. Because he's not running, his head's a lot lower, he's just investigating, he's still interacting with his environment, he's kind of moving his lips there. So he's interested, but he's not horribly fearful of it. So I'm going to give him a minute and then bring it back up. But definitely keep the stick out to one side. You don't want to bring it right up underneath their nose, because especially when you bring something up underneath their nose in their blind spot, they could strike out and try and get it with their foot, and you could also get caught in the crossfire. So you definitely don't want to do that. You want it to approach in like an arc from their shoulder, or even like straight out in front of them but above their nose so they can see it. But an arc is better, since their eyes are on the side of the head, they can see it coming from the side better than they can from the front. But I like that he's keeping his neck really relaxed and low during this whole thing, so that's pretty good. So every time he looked at it, it kind of moved it a little bit further away, then I'll bring it back. The wind's kind of blowing it, and he didn't get horribly worried with that. Some of them, once the flag starts making some movement, they really kind of lose it, but he seemed to hold it pretty good. So it's a little slow, I'm just holding it up, and then I'll take it away when he touches it. Nothing crazy, I want to go nice and slow. And it moved in the wind, so he got a little worried, but he just moved his nose, so he didn't completely leave, and he's not leaning away, or he's not super tense either. But definitely make sure that if it is going to be windy, you have them set up like this to where the flag blows away from them and not into them. So if he was situated the opposite direction and he was on the right of the screen and I was on the left, and I hold this up to his nose and then the wind gets it and blows it up underneath his chin, then he could strike out at it and scare himself more and hurt you, and it could be a mess. So you gotta take into account the wind and what direction it is blowing. So now he's like, I'm not so sure. It got a little bit windier. It's moving around a bit more. So he wants to back up and kind of give himself a bit more space. So I let him touch it and then take it away again. I'm like, it's the same Same thing, it is blowing around a little bit more, but he seems somewhat decent with it on that side. So I'm going to bring it over here. So just bringing it toward him, he's like, oh, I'm gone. So before this, he had only seen it going away from him, and then it would just lift it up and he touched it. But just as I went to go to the other side, he was like, oh no, this is coming for me. So he said, leave. So I probably could have pulled the flag up a little bit gentler there. He was a little bit worried and moved kind of fast. So I could do it a bit slower, but without being sneaky, because I don't want to slowly sneak it like too slow, because they understand those intentions. And then take it away. So I always want to take it away once he's looked at it or touched it. If they don't even want to look at it, you're just going to have to back up. If they're just running away from you, they're just going to need more distance before they feel comfortable. And then they'll look at it, you can take it away, and then you can work your way up. And again, food would help here too. So as soon as the flag comes out, he gets a click and a treat. The flag moves, he gets a click and a treat. He touches the flag, he gets a click and a treat. Or like when I dropped it on the ground there, you could put some food on the flag and he could eat, like explore it on his own and eat off of it. So then you're still pairing food with the flag, just kind of on his own though. So again, it's just that same thing on the other side. So he handled this better, me changing directions. He didn't just immediately leave, so that's good. But he'd also already seen it on this side too, so that could definitely be why. So it was a good introduction to the flag at first, I think. Nothing too crazy. He actually was a lot calmer than I thought, but you could see he's still worried. So he was definitely added some worry just working with that new object, because as soon as I go to touch him with the whips, he's like, oh my goodness, no. So I think really it's not necessarily the object, it's that it's coming toward him and touching him, and I'm just ignoring those signs where he's telling me like I'm not cool with this. So like right there, he moved his head away, and then I just continued on desensitizing. I think that's why he's having issues with that. So if you slow it down, then you kind of have that communication. He's going to trust you a bit more versus you're just, okay, hold still while I desensitize you, because you can see how much desensitizing I've been doing with him and he's still worried about the whips. So that's definitely something big that I would change in working with him. He is much better now, but I think a lot of people think that the negative reinforcement, while we might not always want to use it, it's a lot faster. In this case, it was not. It took me a really long time to get him over the whips. He was always worried about the whips. He's still, like, I just had been desensitizing to the whips. I changed sides and he's like, oh my God, no. And I had just desensitized that side too. I had desensitized that side, and then he was not okay with this. But then again, as soon as I walked toward him there, he decided, and he flinched and bent away from me. I just kept going with the whip and touched him anyway. That was a lot better, but I should have just stopped mid-flinch, backed up, reapproached. But so you can see that I've done a ton of desensitizing, and he's still really worried about the whips. So the negative reinforcement is definitely not always faster. Also, the positive reinforcement is more thorough as well, I think. So that's just some things I would change about Atlas's beginning training. But the draw looks really good, so I just want to end him on a really good note. He's coming toward me, a little less worried about the whips. That was really nice there, so that's a good place to just end after that desensitizing.